Life Prep is designed to help make decisions for your parents or yourself a little easier. Hi, I'm your host, John Klein. When our parents get along in age, many of us assume power of attorney in order to help keep them secure. Is power of attorney what you think it is? Sometimes it isn't any power at all. Here to help give us a little life prep on what to do, Jim Shields and Tom Boris from Shields and Boris Elder Care Attorneys. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, John.
Jim, before we get started, give us a little background on your law firm.
Well, in 1992, when I was in my third year of law school at Notre Dame, my mom suddenly passed away. And since I was in law school, the family came to me and asked, what do we do? Well, they teach you how to read in law school, they teach you how to write, but they don't teach you what to do when a loved one dies. So I had to rely on others to walk me through the process and what had to be done. Over the years, we've created a firm that helps people walk down this same path, not only when someone passes away, but to help them along when they have some health issues.
Tom, I assume that there are mistakes that are common and most people make them. What are the most common mistakes that you guys discover daily?
Well, absolutely. Mistakes are made on a daily basis. Most of the time it's unintentional, but for the most part, a lot of families out there fail to plan for their future long-term care needs. They fail to plan for the issue of probate. A lot of people may have created revocable living trust and basically have a false sense of security as to what that document actually can or will do for them. Some people have what we consider to be powerless power of attorneys. And then finally, the big mistake people make is procrastination, just putting things off.
And that has to be very common. I'll get to it, and then all of a sudden, sometimes it's too late.
Oh, absolutely.
What is the risk of that most retirees face from long-term care?
In very simple terms, basically going broke. I mean, the cost of skilled care in a long-term care facility today averages $8,400 a month. So that's almost $100,000 a year. And without proper planning, you'll have to spend down your entire estate to possibly $2,400 before you qualify for medical assistance. So our job is to help create plans so that your family doesn't have to lose everything that they've worked their entire life to accumulate.
Is that a big eye-opener when a lot of your clients come in and talk to you for the very first time?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, a lot of people think that Medicare is going to cover their costs or their supplemental insurance is going to cover their costs for care, and that's simply not the case.
You mentioned the word probate. Can you explain what that means? I'm sure a lot of people have heard it and they don't know exactly what probate means.
Probate is a process where a court decides when someone passes who's in charge, who the beneficiaries are, and what creditors get paid or may not get paid. The reason probate exists, the best example I can give, if Grandma passes away and she was a widow and she owns a house, when the family goes to sell that house, someone has to sign the deed. Obviously, Grandma isn't going to be there to sign it. So essentially, when you go through the probate process, you're having the court appoint somebody to have the authority to sign Grandma's name so that title can be cleared and that deed can be transferred. The problem with that is it takes time and it costs money.
Is this something that people can plan ahead to avoid going through the courts deciding the future of Grandma's estate?
Correct. With proper planning, you can put things in place to contractually, through a trust or otherwise, give somebody authority over your assets after you pass to avoid that process, which saves time and saves money.
A revocable living trust, are there problems with that, or is that something that most people should look into?
Well, I tell you what, the two common problems that we find, number one, the revocable living trust or revocable living trust is primarily designed to deal with your estate upon death. And unfortunately, there's language in the trust, in most trusts, that we consider to be bear trap language. And this language essentially will trap all the trust assets in that trust to be used to spend for your long-term care, heaven forbid, should you need care. And that limits us as to the planning strategies that we can use to help shelter your assets. So that's the first issue. The second big problem is a majority of trusts that we've reviewed have not been funded, meaning either the client or the client's attorney is not taking the appropriate time to transfer the title or to rename property and assets into that revocable trust. So those are the two big issues.
So even if somebody planned ahead years ago, maybe what they planned years ago hasn't come to fruition or it hasn't been maintained. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. So it's always a good idea to have all your documents reviewed on a regular basis.
A lot of people hear the term power of attorney, but we also heard powerless power of attorney. What does that mean?
Right. Very commonly when we review powers of attorney, we see two issues. The first is that power of attorney says something that, like, it doesn't become effective till 2 doctors put in writing that you're incapacitated. Well, that sounded all well and good because nobody could use it till something happened, but then along came HIPAA, the Privacy Act. And what HIPAA did, it made doctors civilly and criminally liable if they released your medical information to the wrong person. So what has happened is doctors are very reluctant to put in writing that somebody's incapacitated. So you can see the problem. We have a power of attorney that doesn't work until 2 doctors put in writing you're incapacitated, but now we can't get the doctors to do it. The other issue we commonly see is what we see limited gifting. Pennsylvania law says if your power of attorney says gifts or limited gifts, it's the $14,000 per year. The IRS rule used to be $10,000, now it's $14,000. The problem with that is, let's say we have a husband and wife and dad goes into a nursing home. If they have a $200,000 house, we want to get dad's name off the deed because if mom, the caregiver spouse, passes first, which unfortunately is very common, the house would go to dad and that money would be liened or the house would be sold to pay the nursing home. If we had a power of attorney, even if dad was incapacitated, if it says unlimited gifts, we could get the house just in mom's name because that's the only person in the world we can give it to unless somebody is disabled in the family. So, but if that power of attorney says only limited gifts, if that house is worth $200,000, dad owns half, he owns $100,000 of it, he would only be able to give $14,000 of that to his spouse.
So we need to plan ahead on a lot of this.
Right.
You gentlemen have written a book. Tell us a little bit about that, please.
Go ahead, John.
Well, we've written several books. One, What to Do When a Loved One Dies, dedicated to my mom. We have one on oil and gas lease. Tom was raised on a 100-acre farm in Washington County. We also have a book on what smart families do to protect themselves ahead of time. Those are all available either on our website at www.shieldsandboris.com, or if you're not a computer person, you can call our office and receive those. And we will also include our Success Kit package, which also includes a DVD of our seminars.
There's a lot of information that a lot of people thought they had planned for, and now it's coming out that maybe we didn't do the best job. It's always good to have somebody come on and maybe look over and just to make sure that we're heading in the right direction.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'd always rather have it in place and not need it than need it and not have it.
Jim and Tom, thank you very much. You did a great job today. If you have to spend your assets down to $2,400 before qualifying for Medicaid, that's one of the reasons to call these gentlemen. Call Jim, call Tom, 724-934-5044, or log on to shieldsandboris.com. As your parents age, stairs can become a real safety issue. Coming up next, our guests will help keep them safe on the steps. Greg from 101 Mobility will give your life a little life prep and making your stairs a little safer. That's on the way next.